Senate confirms Godwin Emefiele for a second term as governor of the central bank. June 12 recognized as New Democracy Day by the Senate. Locals seek adoption of intellectual approach to conflict resolution in the Niger Delta region. Hello and welcome to TVC News this hour. The police say their operatives have arrested 93 kidnapping suspects from different parts of northern Nigeria. They were arrested by a joint team of operatives attached to Operation Path Adder, an anti-kidnapping operation recently launched by the police. And during the operation, 1 rocket launcher, 45 rifles and 500 live ammunition, 10 pairs of military camouflage uniforms and 2 vehicles were recovered. Forensic and technical intelligence operatives are now investigating all 93 suspects in order to track the source of their weapons and sponsors. Godwin Emefiele now has the approval of the Senate to hold his office as governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria for another 5 years. The Senate confirmed him for a second term today, following the adoption of the report of its Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions. While congratulating the CBN governor, the president of the Senate urged him to use his second term in improving the nation's economy and live up to the expectations of the Nigerian people. Mr. Emefiele has, by this reappointment, made history as the first CBN governor to run a second term since 1999.
That the nominee has performed credibly in his first tenure, which resulted to the exit of the nation out of economic recession. Going by the nominee's character, banking experience, vast economic knowledge, and performance in his first tenure, he is qualified for the position of the governor of the central bank for another term, in which he has been nominated by Mr. President. In view of the above, the committee recommends that the Senate do approve the confirmation and renewal of appointment of Mr. Godwin Emefiele, CON, as the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Distinguished colleagues, confirmation. Will the Senate confirm the renewal of the nomination of Godwin Emefiele for the appointment as governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The renewal of the appointment of Godwin Emefiele is hereby confirmed as the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. On behalf of the Senate, let me congratulate the governor of the Central Bank, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, on the renewal of his appointment. We wish him a useful 5 years and we'll use the opportunity to continue to provide support to ensure that the economy of our country.
It was indeed a busy day for the Senate as it also passed a bill confirming June the 12th as Democracy Day. The Public Holiday Act Amendment Bill 2004 seeks to make June 12th Nigeria's New Democracy Day to replace May the 29th, which marks the official handing over of military to civilian administration. Well, this follows the passage of the bill in the lower chamber last December in honor of the late politician Moshood Abiola, who contested in the annulled June 12, 1993 presidential election. The bill is to be sent to the President, Muhammadu Buhari, for assent.
Public Holiday Act Amendment Bill 2019 was read the first time on Thursday, 25th April 2019. This bill seeks to amend the Public Holiday Act Cap P40, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to provide for the substitution of Item 5 to the schedule with Democracy Day, 12th of June.
A bill for an act to amend the Public Holidays Act, Cap P40, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to bring the act in tandem with the current realities and exigencies of the modern times, and to declare June 12 as Democracy Day in Nigeria and for related matters, 2019 is already the third time and passed.
Now, the release of more than 900 children believed to be working with the Civilian Joint Task Force in different capacities has shifted focus to this organized local vigilance group formed to defend communities in the northeast against attacks from Boko Haram insurgents. Senior correspondent Femi Akonde brings us an exclusive report on the civilian JTF.
Gambo Kashim is counting the cost of an insurgency that has lingered for more than 6 years. The profit he makes from vulcanizing is barely enough to feed his family. Inside his impoverished home, we meet his family and his 16-year-old son, Bamai Kashim, who once worked for the Civilian Joint Task Force as an informant in the heat of the counter-terrorism activity. But he has now been disengaged in compliance with a United Nations action plan to protect children in conflict.
At that time, things were really bad. We all had to assist the civilian JTF because we were tired of the killings. I know a lot of them. My job was basically to identify members of the Boko Haram to the JTF. They once attacked a supermarket where I was working and killed one person.
Bamai started working with the civilian JTF at the age of 12. He collected stipends that was used to cater for the family. Now the father bears the burden of providing for the family all alone.
My son served the civilian JTF in different capacities. He helped to wash their uniforms, buy food, and even helped man roadblocks. At that time, he makes small money from the service he renders. But now, all of these has stopped. He goes to school and returns to join me at my vulcanizing shop.
I met a top commander of the civilian JTF who has earned a reputation for himself as a fearless fighter and a defender of the population. He commands a battalion of voluntary fighters fed up with killings, bombings and destructions wreaked by Boko Haram.
Well, I can say, those people that are killing in the community, they are our brothers. But we are seeing every day just a single man with a single gun. Even we are about 20, you just come and fire one and move away. So we say, no, enough is enough. Instead of killing 20, so let me die. That's what I prefer, so that I protect the 19. That is the idea that every civilian Japan is in mind. So it's a sacrifice that we make, and we agree. We know that we are going to die. Yes, one day we will die. So this is the sacrifice that we make.
The members of the Civilian Joint Task Force are now seen as heroes in the community because of the sacrifice they make in defending the people. Once upon a time, moving freely on the streets of Maiduguri was very risky. Everywhere had become a front line in the war against the Boko Haram terrorists. You could see the fear and tension in the faces of the people. But thankfully, all of that is over. There is now a sense of safety guaranteed by efforts of the civilian JTF and the Nigerian army. Maintaining this peace is a task that must be done. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Maiduguri, Borno State.
Now, the Nigerian Armed Forces have rules of engagement, but the need to take a second look at them and make amendments and also ensure they conform with globally acceptable standards are why a committee has just been inaugurated by the Chief of Defense Staff in Abuja. Now, this is on the heels of a new paradigm encouraging joint operations by security forces in order to stem insecurity in the country. Defense correspondent Sifon Essien reports.
Rights organizations like Amnesty International have several times accused the Nigerian Armed Forces of gross human rights abuses, particularly in the fight against insurgency. The accusations largely border on the alleged failure of troops to adhere to the rules of engagement on armed conflicts, a situation the military authorities have always kicked against. For the armed forces, this highlighted the need for the standardization of its rules of engagement, which is the reason for this forum in Abuja.
I expect this committee to standardize the modalities for teaching rules of engagement in all our military training institutions and also to develop a standard package as well as a module for actualizing same.
Each of the services within the armed forces has its rules of engagement, but the task of this committee is to take a second look at these rules, review them, and ensure they meet globally acceptable standards. In reviewing the rules, the committee would have to take into consideration the situations within which conflicts occur.
Rules of engagement must be contextualized to a specific operation. Since the armed forces can be called upon to conduct operations in peacetime or during an armed conflict, rules of engagement have to be designed and adapted, taking into account the relevant legal framework.
The forum is coming on the heels of a renewed bid by the armed forces to work together to address the country's security challenges. Sifon Essien, TVC News, Abuja.
You're watching TVC News this hour. Coming up, locals seek adoption of intellectual approach to conflict resolution in the Niger Delta region. Stay with us for details of that story and even more in just a moment. Glad to have you back. Isaac Boro took up arms against the Nigerian state, but troops of the federal government squashed the revolution that lasted just only 12 days. Now today, his people have resolved to adopt the intellectual approach in drawing the attention of the federal government to what they call the neglect of underdevelopment of the oil-rich Niger Delta region. Ovietime George has more.
The deputy governor of Bayelsa State was among those who watched a dramatic presentation of Isaac Boro's 12-day revolution at the Ijo House in Yenagoa.
The stage in Nigeria is more of intellectual war between ourselves and the other areas in trying to push our points forward. That's what we expect our people to do. First, develop yourself, and then we can move forward.
The Niger Delta produces all the oil in the country, but we don't get as much as we should be getting. We need to convince our fellow brothers and sisters that we should be getting more through dialogue. If he were alive today, he would actually support these young people educating themselves and fighting these battles in a different way, intellectually, with their brains.
We are using this opportunity to call the IOCs to order. The government, federal government, has so asked them to relocate their headquarters to their operational base. We are asking them to relocate as soon as possible to create employment and other benefits for our people.
At Kayama, hometown of the fallen hero of the Niger Delta struggle, the Ijo Youth Council organized a series of activities, including a lecture and a march past by retired soldiers in honor of their departed colleague.
Hooliganism should not be part of, the struggle at all. Talk, bring intellectualism to bear. Zamfara is mining their gold, the diamond. We are getting to the point where we also have to mine our oil.
We are Nigerians, and Nigeria is still Nigeria today because of the Niger Delta people. But what we are asking for is that, as it is the practice everywhere in other climes, that when you have a natural resources, the people are allowed to control their resources. And that is what we are asking for. And that we should be allowed to control our resources. And we pay a certain percent to the center. And that we will amicably live together as happy people.
Fiscal federalism is the way forward. It's been practiced all over the world, in the United States, in Asia, in Europe, and all of it is working. So why don't we, as a people, see how we can upgrade the system of governance in our country to ensure that we have lasting peace?
Isaac Boro died in 1968 during the Civil War, but the struggle for a better life and development of the oil-rich Niger Delta region is sustained by his people 51 years after his departure. Ovietime George, TVC News, Yenagoa, Bayelsa State.
And joining me on TVC News this hour is our correspondent in the Niger Delta region, Ovietime George, and he's in Yenagoa. And then also in Abuja is another correspondent, Tijesu Adeoye, who covered an event held by Ijon natives to also mark the day and use the opportunity to call for the environmental degradation of the Niger Delta to be addressed. Let me start with you, Ovietime. Now, Ijon natives and Niger Delta citizens in general are saying that they want to adopt intellectual approach into clamoring for what they want. But in recent times, we've seen more protests. Tell me how they plan to go about it this time around.
Well, what I saw today was quite impressive. A people's determination, a people's resolve not to take to arms anymore, as exemplified by Azeezat. Yes.
All right, let's go
hear
to Tijesu Adioye while we try to establish Ovietemi's audio. Tijesu, you covered an event marking the Isaac Boro Day as well in Abuja. What were the demands?
Well, it was a very interesting and intriguing celebration here in Abuja as the natives, the Ijaw natives, gathered at the Jabi Lake Park to celebrate one of their fallen heroes, Isaac Adaka Boro, who fought against the exploitation of oil in the Niger Delta region. He believed the federal government at the time and the people of the eastern region were the sole benefactors of proceeds from the oil wealth in the Niger Delta region. And he felt that this was unfair to the Niger Delta people. He believed that the Niger Delta people were supposed to be the ones who largely benefited from the oil wealth in the Niger Delta region. So he fought actively for this cause, and this is why they celebrate the Boro Day today. And this day is very significant to them because it symbolizes the struggle for justice, it symbolizes the struggle for equality, it also symbolizes the struggle for fairness. Of course, you know, the issue of exploitation and exploration remains a prominent issue in the Niger Delta region. There are several calls for the cleanup in the region. The President Muhammadu Buhari has already promised to clean up the area. He has set up a committee to clean up the area. But for some reason, this is yet to, kickstart. So this, they say, this celebration today, they say they want it to serve as a wake-up call to the president to fulfill his promise to the Niger Delta people and also to develop, for more development to be brought to the Niger Delta region.
All right, Tijesu, I'll come to you in a bit. Let me go back to Ovietemi George now, correspondent in Bayelsa State capital, Yenagoa. Ovietemi, I asked you earlier about how they plan to go about adopting the intellectual approach in clamoring for the plight of the Niger Delta region to be addressed. Talk to me about the strategy.
Well, Major Jasper Isaac Adaka Boro, of blessed memory, took up arms. But much later, towards the end of the war, his wife told me, Boro, that he regretted the action and he said he didn't achieve much. Boro was educated up to the university level. So now the youth of the Niger Delta are looking at him towards the end of his life, before he left, before he died. He advocated for the intellectual approach to dealing with issues. So now, sometimes the youth take to the streets or to the east-west road to protest. Nobody's molested. They don't take up arms anymore. They have resolved, a people determined to change the narrative, that they don't want to be seen as militants anymore, but rather invest in education, that the generation that is coming will continue the struggle. Intellectual approach they meant, but it means simply and squarely that there will not be unrest in the Niger Delta because the region was noted for that in the past. But this time around, they are advocating education of the youth, investment in education from the primary to the secondary to the tertiary institution, that the ones that are coming up should be far better than they are. Now, Boroism is a movement from Kayama in Bayelsa State to Port Harcourt, River State, to Ondo State, as far as London, where Boro is being celebrated today. The message is quite clear. We need to engage the federal government, come to the negotiation table, and resolve the crisis amicably without taking up arms. And that was actually what they meant by adopting the intellectual approach without shooting any gun.
All right, I'll come back to you, Ovietemi. Let me go back to Tijesu, who is in Abuja. Tijesu, was the same position Ijaw natives held, talking about adopting intellectual approach in solving the problem?
Well, what they wanted, their general consensus was that they wanted a wake-up call. They wanted to serve a wake-up call to the president to address issues that is confronting the Niger Delta people. They feel that they are still being marginalized as a people, being that they generate most of the country's revenue. So they believe that they are being marginalized and they are not being given much attention as they should. So they want the president to address some of the issues confronting them and also fulfill his promises he made to the Niger Delta people.
All right, Ovieteme, back to you now. What are the demands the Niger Delta natives are making? We know about them saying that IOCs should come back.
Well, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, what the Niger Delta just less than 2 years ago, he made a promise, I could remember quite vividly, at Kurutie and Okorosa in Baramatu Kingdom of Delta State. He moved down to Bayelsa, the same message, all the way to Uyo in Akwa Ibom State. He spoke to them. He made a call that the people who suffer years of environmental degradation, the IOCs, the international oil companies, should be closer to the source of production, not to have their offices in far-flung areas like Lagos and Abuja, while the people who are sitting close to the pipe installations, any little problem, could it be sabotage or could it be equipment failure on the part of the multinationals, the people suffer. Now, if the IOCs come down to their states of operation, there will be job creation and there will be less of unrest or what we used to call militancy in the past. There will be an improvement. Now, going back now to 1956, June to be precise, oil was discovered in commercial quantity in Otabali. Now, it is called Oil Well 1. It represents all the oil wells, which is referred to as the Oloibri oil field. Go there, you won't find anything that indicates that this community once oiled the wheels of the Nigerian economy since 1956. At best, you see a monument here, more like a stone that was laid by former President Olusegun Obasanjo for an oil and gas research institute, but nothing is happening. So the agitation and the clamor,
all right,
they want resource control. They want to control their resources and then pay something to the center, that is the federal government, which they believe they will be able to bring about development in the Niger Delta.
Okay, Ovieteme, I just have to cut you there because of time. I know you have a lot to say, and I know many Nigerians know that the Niger Delta people have a lot of demands, and this is just coming just yesterday when the federal government announced that the Ogoni cleanup project will be handed over to the contractors next Wednesday. Ovieteme George, TVC News correspondent in Bayelsa State, and Tijesu Adeoye, a correspondent in Abuja, there talking to us about how Ijaw natives in general marked the Isaac Boro Day. And on that note, we wrap it up on TVC News this hour. Thank you for watching, but you can join us on all our social media platforms on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Our handle is @TVCNewsNG for all the latest stories within Nigeria and the rest of the world. You can go to our website as well. It's tvcnews.tv for stories there as well. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.